6.5 years ago, I took office after decades in which our addiction to fossil fuels and foreign oil perennially threatened our planet and our national security.
Because the essence of genuine sustainable energy strategy is to get two things right. One, energy efficiency.
It's time for adults on this planet to start acting like adults. We need to stand up and realize that there's a limited amount of time left for us to literally save civilization.
Meanwhile, Maryland became the second state after New York to ban fracking.
Eagle Ridge was caught dumping chemicals into Hickory Creek.
What is the solution? Wave power, a hidden energy source. The ocean's tides are powerful forces shaping the planet day by day. They are consistent and predictable. Scientists can calculate how powerful the tides are on any given day. We have the ability to harness this grand occurrence of nature and utilize it as an efficient green form of energy. Let us begin in Nova Scotia, Canada. Nova Scotia is home to the Bay of Fundy. This bay has the world's highest tides. They reach heights as tall as 50 feet in many locations. Energy companies have been doing research and testing wave power units here and have predicted that if the force of these tides could be harnessed, it would generate the same power as 250 nuclear power plants. For too long, we have been looking up for the solution. It is time we dive deeper and look beneath the surface into the tides. Our ocean's tides are produced by the gravitational attraction of the sun and the moon. The attraction causes the waters of the earth to bulge in the direction of the moon. This bulge is the tide, and it moves as the moon travels around the earth, creating high and low tide. The high tide always appears on the side of the earth the moon is on, and the exact opposite point. There is a total of 2 high tides and 2 low tides on any given day. The moon rise and the moon set correspond to low tide. The sun, while farther away from the earth than the moon, still has a large effect on the tides. When the moon is in line with the sun and the earth, the tides are at their highest point. These are called the spring tides. When the moon is perpendicular to the earth and the sun, these are the weakest tides, and they are called the neap tides. Because the tides are controlled by the sun and the moon, they are very predictable and reliable. We know how high and how strong they are always going to be. To be able to harness this great power would be incredibly beneficial to us. Under the headings of wave and tidal power, there are many different types of generators. Here are the first.
The firm plans to build a sea wall over 5 miles long to enclose a vast body of water into a lagoon here in Swansea Bay.
Tidal barrages and tidal lagoons are 2 forms of wave power that work in similar fashions. Both require large dams to be built across sections of water. A tidal lagoon has a large enclosed dam built with turbines within the structure. A tidal barrage blocks off 2 sections of water in a smaller space. As the tide comes in, the water is inhibited from going through the turbines. Once the tide reaches a certain threshold point, the water rushes through the floodgates, generating power. Power is also generated in the same way in the reverse direction, when the tide is going back out.
An enclosed chamber has an opening beneath sea level, which allows water to flow from the sea to the chamber and back. The water level in the chamber rises and falls with the rhythm of the waves, and air is forced forwards and backwards through the turbine, connected to an upper opening in the chamber. As it is compressed and decompressed, the airflow has sufficient power to drive the Wells turbine.
Another form of wave power can be seen in the form of the Sea Razor pump. The Sea Razor pump wave energy device is a structure that floats just at the top of the water and generates power from the pumping motion the lapping of the waves cause. There are small, compact, and simple to install power generators that can be placed in large quantities a few miles out from shore.
sea creatures are inspiring the latest devices that harness wave power. This one, called the Oyster, sits on the ocean floor and opens and closes as waves pass over it. Cables attach it to generators on the shore. Since November 2009, it's been powering 9,000 homes in the Orkney Islands.
This form of power is quite beneficial because the back and forth motion creates pressure changes that flow through the tubes that are not converted into electricity until on land. This keeps the chance of electric shock out of the water.
Another device looks like a snake. The Anaconda is made from a rubber tube filled with water that floats just below the surface. When a swell hits the front of it, the tube is squeezed. A bulge ripples down its length and powers a turbine in its tail. Prototypes are currently being tested, but the full-scale version will be 200 meters long.
The next form of wave power is also snake-like. This is the Pelamy wave power device. Made from carbon steel, this large red snake bobs up and down in the water. With hydraulic rams in the joints of the 4 separate sections, one of these structures is able to produce 750 kilowatts per hour. Tidal turbines are a form of wave power generators that are placed on the ocean floor. As tides come in and out, the water moves the turbine, which then generates power. These turbines act very similar to wind turbines, but are able to produce more power because water has a much greater density than air. A single turbine can generate 1 megawatt of power. Like other turbines used for underwater power generation, these turbines can generate power in the reverse direction because of their special rotor design. The turbines are almost always generating power, only losing time in the brief moments in between the tides. Like many other forms of wave power, large farms of these can be created on the ocean floor. Wave power has the potential to be very successful. It is simple, often unseen, and can be utilized on almost every coastline. But like all forms of energy, it is not perfect.
When fish pass through the turbine draft tube, because of the characteristics of the turbine, first, the turbine is a big spinning propeller. So there is what we call mechanical strike taking place all the time. In other words, the fish are actually hit by the turbine machinery. However, other things happen over the blades, which is what makes them work. These turbines are called axial flow hydraulic lift, and it's the hydraulic lift that is produced that creates pressure changes inside the draft tube. Those pressure changes affect fish by disrupting their gas bladder and other aspects, or causing small pressure explosions around the blade, which also harm or kill the fish. And then the final thing is, as the water is coming off the back end of the blade, shear takes place. And shear affects smallest fish the most, things like salmon smolts or herring, and it can literally tear their head off as they pass through the zone where 2 velocities of current over the blade intersect.
In certain areas, turbines can do great damage to fish populations.
It's catastrophic. One species in particular, striped bass, which was economically important to that area, brought a lot of money, a lot of business into that area, and was a unique genetic strain. It's been wiped out.
Barrages, lagoons, and wave power stations are large and take up a lot of space. They also make a huge impact on the ecosystem by being these large concrete structures. The Anaconda and Pelamy and the Sea Razor float on the top of the water. They are unique in the sense they do not sit on the ocean floor or have large turbines spinning around. The likelihood of animal population destruction from them is minimal, and we can place large amounts of them offshore far from sight. Another great benefit is how cheap the Anaconda is. It can generate a large amount of power and is cheap because of the rubber exterior, and it also has a long lifetime. Though a problem with these floating generators is safety precautions. They would need to be marked extremely carefully in order to not risk having boats and ships plowing right through them. Large power generator farms are great. Boats would be forced to make large diversions. What this shows is that energy is not one size fits all. There are many options for different areas. Wave power may not be perfect. It is still a powerful force of nature we can harness. We just need to take the time to pick and choose where we harness it and how we do it. The possibilities are endless in the exploration of wave power. There are so many unique forms that have been created, and it is time we utilize them. It is time we look to the tides.